Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your attention. Take your seats. I would like, first of all, to welcome you to this first session of our conference. As you know, the session is titled Art Cities, Local Heritage with Global Value, a Challenge for Venice. It's a very complex title, and we will try now to declinate and try to analyze the issues that are in front of us. I would like to explain to you very briefly how we're going to work this afternoon. There will be 3 presentations, all in English, by Bonnie Burnham, who's sitting here on my right. Bonnie is very well known to all those who work in the field of heritage, because she has been for many, many years the president of the World Monument Fund, one of the leading institutions internationally and based in New York, but international institutions for the protection of heritage. And she will share with us her thoughts on the issues that are reflected in the title. Good luck, Bonnie. Then we have with us old friend Joan Busquets. Joan is an architect and planner, again, very well known internationally to all those who work on historic cities and urban and the planning of urban futures. He's based in Barcelona, where he has his office and he works worldwide as a planner. But he's also a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, one of the most prominent schools of architecture in the world. He teaches there urban design and urban planning, a studio, I think, in urban design and urban planning, which has become a very popular one among students there, and it's very famous as a professor and not only as a planner. And then we have connected with us, you don't see it now, Richard Sennett. Richard is in London. Good afternoon, Richard. You cannot answer, but good afternoon. And Richard is, again, another world prominent professor, theoretician, philosopher, analyst, sociologist. He has he has done in his life many frequentations of different aspects of the modern conditions. And of course, he's very, very interested in the issue of urban future. We just had a very interesting meeting in Quito just a couple of weeks ago. As you know, the United Nations convened the 3rd World Conference on Habitat 3. Richard was there with many other experts around the world to discuss with the leaders of the world the future of cities. So these will be our 3 presentations. After that, we will open a discussion. And the discussion will be will involve the people that are around this table. And I'd like to introduce it to you, although you will see them in the next sessions, because these are all the panelists of the next session. Charles Richards, Pierre Vellinger, Charles Perrings, Charles Landry, and Monsieur Meny from France. Yves Meny. So we would like to involve them in an interactive discussion in order to also see how different disciplines interpret the positions and the suggestions that will come from our 3 speakers. The idea here is to create a very hybrid discussion, so that even Pierre, who is a climatologist, can discuss about tourism, for instance. Or Yves Meny, who is a political scientist, can discuss about the issue of hydrology, if you can. I think the idea that was suggested to us by the foundation is to really confront the different views and different disciplines around Venice. There is not one model fits all. The problems that we have in front of us in Venice, that we had for many years and many decades, have created a complexity that is very, very difficult to untangle, as everybody knows. Everybody that opens his mouth on Venice finds immediately, they can verify this immediately, because certainly he has only addressed one part of the truth. Now, one thing I would like to say before giving the floor to Bonnie first is that the problems that we have in front of us are complex, but not unique. In my job, I am the Assistant Director General of UNESCO for Culture, and I've been working for many, many years on issues of site management, site protection, site conservation, city conservation. I see that the similar phenomenon happening in many other places, many other parts of the world. We are, in a way, looking at a situation where some of the things that we think sometimes are unique, like, for instance, the loss of population of Venice, are not unique at all. Try to go to other cities in Italy, Florence, for instance. Well, you will find probably that there is a similar process, that the center of the city, the historic core of our very important historic centers, have been depopulated to proportions that are very similar to the ones that we have in Venice. For instance, I know very well the situation of Bergamo, very nice city nearby. Bergamo has 2,000 inhabitants. 2,000 inhabitants. I think the depopulation of Bergamo is even worse than the one of Venice. But you go everywhere. I think we have here people from Barcelona or other cities. I think anyone can tell the same stories. In the past 30, 40 years, there's been a very important demographic, economic shift. Sometimes it was just a normal expansion of the city. People want to go and move in places where there are more space, the housing condition is better. This is quite normal. Sometimes this has been pushed by global phenomena. Clearly, tourism is the prominent one. Again, not the only one, and nobody wants to blame or tourism and the tourist industry. But certainly, tourism is the only global industry that has never suffered a crisis. I met the other day my colleague, the Director General of the UNWTO, l'Organisation Mondiale du Tourisme, l'Organizzazione Mondiale del Turismo. And they do a lot of forecasts and projections on what's happening. Well, he told me, look, the situation is the following. Today, we have 1.3 billion international tourists. Our estimate is for 2030, between 1.8 and 1.9. This corresponds to a growth rate of 5% a year. And this has gone on uninterruptedly for the past 30 years. So we have in front of us a very important, very dynamic, and very growing industry, which is the one that, of course, we confront with when we are in Venice or when we are in Barcelona, for instance, the city of Joan. Barcelona is the first city that has, before Venice, has put banners. No tourists say, go home. They go home. Tourists go home, like Yankee go home in the past. Now it's tourists go home. Even before Venice. In fact, Venice has been quite gentle with tourists. Barcelona has been very harsh. We have cities like, even in America, I looked at the situation, for instance, San Francisco or New Orleans. These cities have been almost swallowed by the combination of low-cost flights and Airbnb. There is no space anymore for the inhabitants because the tourists are taking everything. This is another thing that we complain when we talk about Venice, but these are not unique phenomena, except that Venice has some specialties, and this is why we have to be careful. Every place is different. Every place has his own characteristics. Well, of course, the physical isolation of Venice from the rest of the land makes it very different. We are an island, and an island has only one access, or a little more than one, if you take some boats. Of course, the fragility of the ecosystem, again, is perhaps a factor of unicity. The fact that Venice was, a city extremely rich in activities, traditional activities, and all of this has been lost or largely lost. It's also a very important element. So the fact that we are now in a situation in which there is essentially one economy. Of course, Florence also is very big in tourism, but Florence has also a territory, an economy that interacts much more than here. I think there are some specificity here that we have to look at. So at the same time, to make it very short, we have global phenomena that are happening and that are transforming our historic areas and sites. I didn't talk about the other dramas of the other sites, but there are many, as you can imagine. When you go to places like Angkor or Machu Picchu or Chichen Itza, you realize yourself that how this also impacts other parts of our world heritage. But here we have this combination of very strong, perhaps exceptional strength of this tourist industry and the tourist demand, a very high fragility of the physical environment, of the natural environment, that makes it very, very, very special. Now, all this makes it very difficult to manage. We know that, and everybody has tried, knows. So the governance issue, I think the President mentioned this morning, this as a prominent feature of our problems. The governance issue is, I think, primordial and paramount. We have to deal with this, to discuss it at least. Of course, when you say governance is a good word for politics, right? So we don't say the word politics, but we mean it. Governance is a complicated thing in terms of, in a place like this, place like Venice has 21 national and local institutions that have something to say on the territory and can enter in the decision-making process. So governance is not an easy task. I think you all read the very brilliant paper of Yves Meny on his ideas on how Venice can be saved or rescued or whatever. It's very difficult. So there is no easy solution. And anybody thinks there's a solution can join what our Prime Minister Andreotti, you'll remember, he was saying there are two types of crazy people, those who think are Napoleon and those who think they can fix Venice. Okay, so now let's, without further ado, let's go to the substance of our discussion, because we really want to hear from our experts that have had so much experience around the world. What is their view, and what is their, what are, other cases perhaps that where problems like the ones that we're facing in Venice have been addressed. So the first victim is Bonnie Burnham. I introduced her already, but she's a good friend of mine since many, many years, so I can mistreat her. Bonnie will talk a lot about sites, World Heritage Sites or heritage sites in general, because she had the fortune in her life to really be an actor at the global scale in the safeguarding of heritage sites of great importance. And she's also a very good thinker. She doesn't just look at things, she X-rays things. Bonnie, give us your X-rays.